Whether you are on an adventure or at the downtown cafe, your answers are no more than a sniff away. Dog Training 360's purpose is simple: to teach you why dogs do what they do, as well as the action steps you need to take to have better communication, connection, consistency, and conceivability with your dog. We've just wrapped up our series on just kind of how the dog evolves and the way puppies evolve in their brains and where they're at in each stages. And we're going to head into a really fun time. And I think it's right on time because we are heading into our colder seasons. Even our warm places are heading into cooler time of year. And it's a time that we tend to get out a little bit more because it's cooler. It's time that we get our dogs out more. We travel with our dogs more because we can leave them in the car when we run into the grocery store. But also, it's also a time that we're heading into some hibernation and some dormancy. And what do we do with our dogs being cooped up inside? And it's a time that we also, maybe don't get out as much as we head into December and January and February. And so I want to talk a lot about just kind of our adventures and prepping for adventures and where we're going, this fall and winter with our new series here. And it's all going to be about the adventures of Shannon and Joe and our pack of 5-ish dogs. And so I think it's important to talk about, what we expect from our dogs and what we're going to start doing to prep. We haven't really completely started planning our first adventure with the dogs, but we definitely need to kind of start prepping our dogs as, what to expect and what our expectations are. And also, taking them all out together as we start doing some of these adventures. And so I think the first thing that I want to talk about is, Shannon, we're doing in a couple of weeks here, we're doing canines and cocktails at my house. And I think it's one thing that people are always curious about is, how do you get your dogs just to hang out with you when there's a crowd of people, and having people over to your house. And to me, that's an adventure in and of itself. And especially heading into the holidays, people are going to have people over more than what they normally do. And so let's talk a little bit about, what our goal is with cocktails and canines and our clients and what's going to take place there. And Shannon, talk to me a little bit about, what you expect with your dogs when you have company over and what that looks like and how you kind of start setting them up to be successful. 'Cause you've had a house full this last month as well.
Oh yeah, like visitors and things like that.
Yep.
Well, I think you have to think about first, before you invite anybody over, how do you want your dog to be?
Yeah.
Do you want them to greet people right at the door as soon as the people open the door and your dog's face pokes right out?
Yeah.
Or do you want them to wait in the kitchen until all of the people come in and then they're allowed to go see?
Right.
Are they allowed on the sofa when your company's there as opposed to when you're there? I've gone to people's house and dogs are just running across your lap.
Yeah.
Things like that, you know, which maybe they do regularly, or maybe they only do that when company comes, but the owner has set the precedent that is acceptable, right? If they only do that when company comes.
Right.
So first you have to kind of think about it. What kind of people are coming over? Do they like your dog? And people that come over can have different rules too.
For sure.
Some people that come over, they're the party and everything's wild and crazy and that's fine.
Yeah.
And then when other people come, it's not.
Right.
So you have to mill through all these ideas in your mind.
Yep.
Who's coming over? Do they like dogs? How should your dog behave? Does your dog have these same rules as when you're home, as when company's there?
Right.
And make a plan.
Yeah. Yep.
Of how you want to behave and how you want your dog to behave.
Yeah.
Then you have to practice.
Yep.
So you practice first. If your dog has no manners, some people's dogs don't.
Yeah.
Practice those manners with nobody there.
Yeah.
These are our new rules of how we're going to behave, and this is what we're going to do, and we be consistent and we follow those rules.
Right.
Then invite, I would say, safe people over.
Yeah.
People like your sister, your brother, your best friend.
Yeah.
You know, people that come to your house all the time and love your dog.
Right.
And then enforce those rules that you've made while those people are there.
Yeah. Yep.
Then invite less safe people, like people maybe, but your dog doesn't know.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
invite people that are then like maybe almost completely total strangers.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and practice, you know, all these different ages of people, elderly people,
Right.
little children,
Yeah.
babies, you know. So it just kind of depends. I don't have lots of children at my home because most of my friends don't have children.
Yeah.
And my family, my sisters are all like much younger than me,
Right.
so they're not ready to have
Yeah.
children yet.
Yeah.
So I just recently had my nieces over, and it changed the way my dogs behave.
Right. Yeah.
'Cause you noticed when you came over after, and
Yeah.
they were like, "Oh, we sit on the sofa and we put our head on your shoulder,"
Yeah,
and
right.
because my dogs were used to being in this like giant dog pile of children
Yeah.
everywhere they went.
Yep.
And I really liked them having that experience, especially for Dutch and Ripley,
For sure.
who are just here with me all the time, you know,
Right.
that
Right.
they could have that softer experience
Yeah.
of being with children
Just
that
loose and
they don't really expect much. Kids don't really expect much.
yeah.
And the dogs would listen to them. If they asked them obedience commands, the dogs would do it
Right.
for the kids.
Right.
But they weren't like expected to uphold these like rules.
Yes.
It was like much more loose and soft.
Spontaneous.
Yeah,
and
yeah. So it was really good experience for
Yeah,
the dogs.
for
But
sure.
you just have to practice.
Right. Right. And stick to it
Yeah.
and put them away when you can't.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, one thing as we start talking about adventures for us, this adventure, sometimes the adventure is going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
And sometimes the adventure is going to have a coffee with friends. And sometimes it's, you know, everybody wants to get together with their dogs and hang out. But there still has to be expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have expectations in the house when people come, then it does transfer to when you go to somebody else's house.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important as we, you know, start our Cocktails and Canines, our series that we're going to have through the winter is, you know, when it starts getting cold, and, you know, what does that look like when our first one's going to be outside in my yard,
Mm-hmm.
but the next one is going to be inside,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. And, you know, do you take your dog into an environment that they aren't comfortable in or that they don't know how to behave in? Because I'm not going to allow dogs to be running all over the couch.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care whose dog it is. They're not going to be running all over my furniture. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you know, does your dog know that there's different rules in different places before you go out on a big adventure or on a big journey of, you know, does your dog really know how to act in public? And going on an adventure and training through that, I think, is really important to start in the home and having rules so that it will transfer.
Oh, yeah. And you can go on a mini adventure.
Oh, for sure.
Like, I used to take just Louie on a ride to drive my sister home from work
Yeah.
every night. And
Yeah.
that was like a couple of blocks.
Yeah.
And he'd ride in the car. Or Mike would take the dogs over to visit his parents
Mm-hmm.
and just, you know, sit on the sofa for a minute and have them all lay down and just talk for a minute and then come home.
Yeah.
So you can go on
Absolutely.
these little teeny, anything's an adventure for the dog.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter how big it is.
Yep.
You know, you
Yep.
could just walk to maybe your local park and sit on a bench and have them sit,
Yeah.
you know, by you and watch people go by, and like that
Such a great-
counts
yeah.
as an adventure.
Yes, for them, and such a great training exercise of we're just going to go sit watch people go by.
Yeah, for like 15 minutes or
Yeah.
something, and then just walk home.
Yeah.
It's like 20 to 30 minutes of your day,
Right.
but it's a big adventure
Yes,
for the dog.
very much. And they'll just be exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And little training sessions and little adventures, when you get up to bigger adventures, it's easier to deal with. And, you know, we're prepping to go to South Dakota, and the dogs are going with me on this trip. And you know, Cheyenne and I, it's her and I, and so she's been taking the dogs out quite a bit. And, you know, even today, prepping for this trip, they're up with her at the horses, you know, loading the horse trailer and getting everything ready to go. And it's just an adventure. It's just getting out, doing something different, seeing different things, but still having the rules. And just prepping, because Patsy tends to get stressed and poop in her crate. So we've been taking her a lot more in the crate and just kind of on these little mini adventures to kind of help settle the nerves that she has. Getting Caroline to pee in many different places, because we ended up with a bladder infection last time. So, you know, she's going to have to pee on a leash, and, you know, just different things to start prepping for our adventures that we're going to go on. And so what we're going to be talking about in this next series is these little adventures that we go on, and the troubles that we had, and what we need to work on, and how we're going to work on them, to make the next one better. And so you and I are going to start these little mini adventures every week, and then we're going to talk about them, and really, you know, we'll throw some pictures up on our social media and talk about our adventures. But it really, I think people tend to get into this. We have a training schedule. We need to train for 15 minutes or 30 minutes every day. And what I want to see is people doing adventures and working on things that are true to what they're doing, but also, you know, a downstay next to you while you're sitting there having coffee is fantastic. And you're drinking warm coffee. You can sit outside. Or even, you know, going for a walk in a different strange place that, you know, it's stressful for them, but you can train through it. And that's when I really feel like the rubber meets the road with our dogs and training with them. We're going to start, you know, getting our herding stuff going again. And, you know, Caroline's going to go, Louie's going to go. They're all just going to go and be a part of this. You know, they're not going to herd, but just to be out with the animals and going on that adventure and having those expectations and being quiet while they're back tied. Those are great training exercises for them. And I think that's the one thing that people forget is training time is great. But if you don't train in real life in these adventures that we're calling it, it doesn't matter.
I think that's where a lot of people struggle, because they'll say, well, I don't ever take my dog to do this because they're just so bad, or it's just so much work. And it's because they expect like a big, huge adventure to go really good like the first time they try it, without doing these little things to prepare along the way. Taking your dog to a big party, like a big family party that has, I don't know, 5 to 10 dogs there, but you've never taken your dog out of the house. And then they say, well, we just can't take our dog to do this because they're just so bad. No, that's not the case at all. They just didn't know what the expectation was. And you didn't practice beforehand so that your dog can be successful. And you really can take your dog on all kinds of stuff. Geez, I do all the time, and I think that's just me. Like I think, when I'm in the office, then I have the dogs in here with me. When I'm in the yard, I have the dogs with me. And if I'm going to go to the library, I'll take the dogs. If Mike's going to go walk to visit his dad, he'll take the dogs. If we're going to go through the drive-through of McDonald's, we take a car full of dogs.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, we don't have to take them to McDonald's. But they love it so much. And you don't even have to do anything. Just say, get in the car. You know, and they're like, woo, best day ever. We went to McDonald's, you know? So really, there's so many things that your dog can go with you. And if you just practice it a little so that it'll go good, you can do things like that all the time.
And then it just doesn't matter.
No, and it's so fun.
And I think that, you know, we forget that is training. I mean, it truly is. Can your dog ride down the road and not bark at other passerbys? You know,
sit in the car and people walk by you at Target.
You know, I mean, it's just, it really training to real life, but practicing and prepping for these little things will go a long way. And it's, you know, something for me is I really find the joy in taking the dogs. And I, you know, I went down to Torrey, Utah for 3 days, 2.5 days, and I didn't take the dogs. Cheyenne had them all weekend, and it was kind of weird without him, because I was just I was kind of craving that dog. And so I ended up going down to the ranch quite a bit and hanging out and even just sitting with the ranch dogs that were down there, just because I'm so used to having my dogs on the adventures that I go on. And it's pretty rare that they don't go. And so sometimes even, we've got a couple of trips that are going to be kind of tedious, but I'm still planning on taking the dogs, because for me, it's just a nice out to go. I got to go get the dogs out. I got to go get them walked. And one of those trips, will be in Vegas, and I'm going to take them. And so, it's during one of the busiest, craziest cowboy times down in Vegas, and I'm going to take them, because I think that it's just a great experience. We're going to be a part of a booth down there. And I got to get Patsy used to not barking at people, because she's going to be in the booth with me. And so I think it's just, I've got to start thinking of those times. But I just like having my dogs with me. And so I figure out how my adventures can include the dogs into it. And they can't always, but just how do you include your dog and go places and really have this crazy great time? And I think that sometimes we forget that we can take our dogs with us, that we don't always have to leave them with somebody. And there's so many things out there now that accommodate the dogs.
Lots.
That there's really no excuse. I mean, even the rest stops have fenced in dog areas now.
Almost every hotel.
Yeah.
Like you used to have to search on before you would go research which are pet friendly and call ahead and make sure, because they only had one pet friendly room.
Right.
You had to make sure that room wasn't taken.
Yeah.
You could just drive somewhere and get off the freeway and go
Pretty
to
much.
a hotel, and it's pet friendly now.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So we're gonna be talking about the adventures. We're gonna be talking about some of the resources that we use as we kind of start talking about adventures. And how we, prep to travel, what our travel bags look like with our dogs, and, even just simply going to have coffee someplace, and we're going to kind of go around to some of these smaller towns around too, that we just may take a day and head to a small town in Utah and really talk about how, the things that we were able to do with our dogs, and maybe some of the things that we weren't able to do with our dogs, but you always have to prep for going to coffee down the road, to going on a big 5-day adventure with the dogs. And so, I think it'll be a great series that we're doing, that people can really kind of embrace, and really understand that you can take your dog along, and really do some amazing things. And that's really kind of where we're building into with adventures and doing things and creating those experiences with people and their dogs.